Hello and welcome to Kimboshi Radio, where Nick, it is Bonsuke Christmas once again. How you feeling?
I feel great. We were wrong about a couple things, but in all the best ways. And of course, we have Onosato, the new Ozeki.
Oh, I mean, that's the biggest news. Although, listen, don't put that bad juju on yourself, baby. I was wrong about things. You don't need to take the heat for that. We'll get to those though, because yeah. So Onosato stepping up. Obviously, the story is just how quickly this has happened, and this is a really big deal because he obviously deserves it. But how are you feeling about Onosato at Ozeki? Does he rule the roost now? What are you thinking?
I think, to be honest with you, at this point, like his record really does kind of speak for it. And I think he's going to be the number one Ozeki soon if Kotozakura can't step it up. Right.
And like, okay, so reportedly both Kotozakura and Hoshoryu struggling with little injuries last time. I mean, probably true, but it's also one of those things, I guess guys are always injured in sumo. I don't know. But like, that performance was so good. And he did beat all of the top wrestlers except for two little surprise losses to Wakataka Kage and Abi, of course, on the last day. So while we've been thinking we're in a bit of a transition period, moving out of the Takerfuji era, like let's just talk about it, right? Like it's all the talk is Yokozuna, but Onosato himself even reportedly said that he's not even focused on attaining Yokozuna right now because he hasn't even fought at Ozeki. Whether those are just an athlete saying the right thing, or whether it's what he truly believes, or whether it's coached into him, I don't know. I kind of think that he does believe it based on who his stable master is, with it being Kisei no Sato, and Kisei no Sato, of all people, having firsthand experience that nothing is given, everything must be taken. But for the sake of the internet, because, you know, this is the world that you and I live in, do you think that Onosato is the best of the three Ozekis for a Yokozuna bet?
Honestly, at this point, yes. I mean, he already, like you said, he's been in top division for 1 year, and he has a better record than both of the other two. Kotozakura has won 0. Hoshoryu has won 1. Not that it's bad; they have good records, but he's even outside of their injuries from the last time, he's just beating them.
Yeah, I mean, it's incredibly impressive. I will say this because Goose from Sunday Morning Sumo Show brought this up to me when I was bringing up my concerns with Kotozakura's performance in September. And he was like, why don't you go ahead and scroll down at the list of his records? And it was a full year of double-digit wins for Kotozakura. So he definitely has that consistency that comes from what you and I liked, is that he got that sort of slow burn rise. So that's an important factor. I still think he could challenge. Hoshoryu, I don't know. We talked last time how I think that he's building a new body, a body intended to compete at Ozeki. And it's a work in progress, 1, on the body, but 2, in adapting the technique to it. So I don't know. I guess I say all that to say I have no idea. I think that these three guys could easily start just exchanging haymakers at the top here for years to come. But limited sample size, Onosato looks like he's just stealing everybody's lunch money.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, everybody has a terrible first tournament typically at Ozeki, so this might not even be his coming tournament might not be the best, but I do still think that he's really turning up the gas on the other two, and part of it too, obviously, is we've seen Kotozakura's gotten really close a couple times, and then Hoshoryu just kicks him down right at the end.
It's so true. Just a little battle bot getting in there. So we'll definitely see what happens there, but I think that's got to be a lead storyline, is what's going on in the Ozeki ranks. But the rest of Sanyaku, here's where I want to get into the stuff like you were talking about. We were wrong on some things, but they're in some interesting spaces. We had Daisho and Wakamoto Haru. I had Daisho and Wakamoto Haru flipped. I won't put that on you. And I'm glad this worked out the way it did. I just, I'd been watching them sandbag people at 8 and 7, so I kind of figured that's what was going to happen to Daisho. But I do like him going up here and Wakamoto Haru just breaking back into Komusubi. Ultimately, it doesn't matter. Those two guys are going to fight all the same people, and I think that they're both back into the form that we know them as, even though Daisho didn't perform as well as we might have wanted last basho. But knocking down to the Komusubi, this is one that I do have opinions on. Shodai is at Komusubi. back-to-back 10-win tournaments, very impressive from the Lord of Chaos. But I really thought that last day match between him and Oho was the decider for who gets to be Komusubi. Oho won that. Personally, I feel a little aggrieved for Oho, especially he was even fighting, I don't know, was it a broken eye socket or a detached retina or something really bad in his eye last basho. And he's out there still grinding until the final day and then got it done. I kind of feel like that's Oho's slot. Do you have any thoughts at the Sekiwake and Komusubi ranks?
Honestly, I do really like the two ranks at this point. Nothing in my heart, there's nothing my heart wants more than Shodai to make another Ozeki run, because the JSA would lose their minds if that happened.
That'd be hilarious. There's no way. It's not going to happen, but it'd be hilarious if just the Dark Magician pulls Ozeki out of his hat.
Yes. No, and now I think he's close enough that he's going to be like, oh, got to dial it back and pull off the pressure. But I agree that it's an interesting choice, because I do think Oho would have been the more sensical choice, I think. And I wonder if it's just because of Shodai's past that they just gave him that nudge just because he's already been up there. I don't know.
No, I think you're exactly correct. I think you've just said it, and it's, it's simple enough. And ultimately the JSA are probably proved right for acting that way long term over the history of the sport, right? Like a guy who, whether or not you don't know if he's actually going to show up with his lunch pail ready to work, but he can work up there in the Sanyaku. And the other thing is, I mean, we talked a big game with Kotozakura making that slow burn up. Maybe Oho is getting the slow burn as well. Again, both of these guys coming from Yokozuna lineages. Oho being the grandson of the great Taiho, and Kotozakura being the grandson of Kotozakura. So, like, ultimately, this could be a good thing for Oho. I'm just a little... I think Oho's going to take a step back because he had to have that eye surgically repaired, because then he's missed some time training. It just doesn't... And now he's gonna, I don't know. So I'm disappointed for the guy, I guess, is what I'm trying to say there.
No, I agree. Or maybe that's part of it too. Like with that injury, if they're not even 100% sure if he's gonna be able to perform at the top, because it's a serious thing, and like you need that to be healed, otherwise you could go blind.
Right. Yeah. And so whatever. We'll see what happens between those two. I want Oho to grind out 9 wins at M1 and prove that he deserves to go up, continue this rise where he's, again, aging into his body. This is a guy who's still at least 3 years away from his prime, probably, so hopefully a lot of growth left there. But another young guy, so Hiradoumi, this is, like we talked about, one of my disappointments with Daisho going up has nothing to do with Daisho. It has to do with the hurt of Hiradoumi going 10 wins 2 basho ago and not getting up to Sekiwake. Drops to M1. Any thoughts on Hirado, and if he is going to immediately bounce back and reclaim that Sanyaku status?
That's a tough one. Komusubi is a tough spot to even hold on to, but I think it entirely depends on Oho. I think it's gonna be really hard to get back up there with the Sanyaku as is. Yeah. Shodai, I mean, he could go, 5 and 10 and drop it, and then it only opens up really one slot. You look at the other 3, and you're like, yeah, they're gonna at least hold on.
I know we've been saying this for the better part of this year, but we have a really good Sanyaku right now. It is hard to crack in, and that's what we want. We want this to be competitive, and sort of, if someone is going to make a run from the outside, we want it to feel like it was earned. And so, that requires you to have a very powerful Sanyaku that they need to break through. So, like you said,
and I do think,
I
do think as well, it's bad. It's really bad timing for Hiradoumi, because he didn't quite make Sekiwake when he could have, and now Wakataka Kage is breathing down his neck.
Yeah,
and so he's got the really high above, really high skill, and then he's got Wakataka Kage literally just basically beating him down from the neck, from behind.
Oh, exactly. And we're gonna have to talk more about Wakataka Kage, because like let's just break into it, right? Wakataka Kage had a slight disappointment in the middle of the basho there, where it really looked like he was making the run up there. I mean, it seems like the dude is healthy, and that was our biggest concern coming off that ACL injury. 12-3 is huge. The Nishikigi loss was a shocker, but Nishikigi had a stellar tournament, bounced back himself. What do you think is, well, even let's do it this way, right? Like, who, if we're talking about Shodai getting the shock Komusubi slot, and we've already given some thoughts on Oho and Hiradoumi, but Wakataka Kage, Ura, Atami Fuji, another young guy who has a great deal of expectations upon his shoulders, or your favorite, Abi. These guys in the 1 through 3 who are supposed to be challenging those Sanyaku and trying to take their spots. How do you feel about them, and who has the best chance to go up?
Well, Abi just coming off a Sekiwake is probably not, but he's going to be back up there like he always is. I do think Wakataka Kage, like I do really kind of give him an edge because he did fight at Sekiwake, but when he was up there, it was a totally different group. So it is hard to know if he's consistently fighting these upper level guys. Can he still pull it off? Maybe. I just personally don't know. Or probably not. I'm going to be honest.
I mean, he was good last basho.
Perform wildly high.
Yeah. Like 9 wins last basho, but you know, it's this up and down. He's losing to Kirishima, which is a respectable loss, but he's losing to Mitakeumi, who had an absolutely horrible basho. So just kind of, you know, confusing, hard to predict. Not that he can't do it, just that I wouldn't want to risk making that pick myself.
Yep. Yeah. I guess that's another one, again, factoring potentially against Hiradoumi is not only Wakataka Kage, but now that I've said that, is Abi as well. He's fighting below you. He's going to have easier matches. And he is a Sekiwake level fighter. And
so with that being said, we're going to get to our actual picks to win this thing, but I think this would be an interesting point to talk about dark horse picks, right? So like usually when you and I are talking about a dark horse pick, we're looking for someone who is generally lower ranked, but is basically underranked. You know what I mean? Like it's someone who's coming off an injury, like when Asanoyama came back up, Wakataka Kage last time, and making these stellar runs up. Who do you think is in contention for that sort of surprise contender? Someone who's in the lower ranks and going to get 12 wins, going to lock up a special prize, but maybe ultimately fall short of the championship. You know, Taka no Show, the previous basho. My boy Takayasu was making the run until going 0-3 in the final 3 days, but yeah.
Well, I don't know if it's a surprise, but I do think Takerfuji at the bottom, he's only been up here once, so it is hard to know. It's a small sample, but he won.
Exactly. Yeah, his one was. What else do you want from him?
I mean, and he didn't. You know, it wasn't like nobody showed up that time. Like he beat some really good people.
Yeah, and he looked really good in Juryo. Like it's this weird situation where we'll talk in a second here after we finish talking about some dark horses about what Juryo looked like and how the division is kind of recalibrating itself. The Sanyaku has recalibrated. We love how that is, but the middle and bottom of this division and even Juryo itself is a little funny looking. But my boy has only competed in 2 full basho since, well, no, let's even do it this way because it's also insanely impressive. This calendar year, so as if November has already happened, but he has only competed in 3 full basho. His records: 13-2 Juryo Championship, 13-2 Makuuchi Championship, and then 13-2 Juryo Championship, and then goes all the way from Juryo 11 back up. So like, why would anyone pick against him? He's obviously, I can throw a dark horse pick out there if we wanted and talk about guys like, I was thinking Abi might be a dark horse pick. I was thinking that even like someone like Chiyoshima, who has looked good but had injury problems, might be it. Or I could go back to the well of Takayasu, but I just don't think that he's going to be healthy. Or someone like Gonoyama, has he fallen far enough that he's going to bounce back? But it doesn't matter. I mean, those are interesting names that we can talk about, but Takerfuji is the dark horse, or is he just a favorite, man? What's up?
I do think he's just a favorite. But this is why exactly, like, when I was thinking today, I'm like, okay, who do I actually think is going to win? And I would not pick Onosato specifically because of, in my opinion, Wakataka Kage and Takerfuji.
Tell me about it.
And obviously going to be tripping up them as well.
Yeah. Tell me about it. So, like, you Really? So you think, and no, I'm not saying this to be like persnickety. This is just like super interesting stuff. You think that those two guys are both just incredibly likely to beat him heads up because of their fighting styles? Or, go on.
Well, Takerfuji did beat him.
Uh-huh.
And the only time that they've faced, he won.
Mm-hmm.
But also, it's just the fact that with all the press and all the parties and everything you have to go to as an Ozeki, you're coming at a disadvantage versus two guys who are much lower ranked than you, who are going to be padded much more than you are.
Exactly. And that's what we talk about with these dark horses is basically they're guys who get a padded record, and we're not trying to belittle them by saying that. It's just kind of this idea that you're not up in the Sanyaku. It's why Atami Fuji has been struggling for an eternity, because he's constantly fighting Sanyaku. He's not being given any padded wins, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, and I did want to just point out too, because you brought it up as well, like Wakataka Kage also beat Onosato last basho.
I'm like, he doesn't lose very often, and to have both of them there,
super interesting. Yeah. Man, yeah, I don't know. It's tough. He's looked so good. I don't know. You know what? All I can say is, man, I'm excited for this basho, because yeah, if we've got Kotozakura, Hoshoryu, and Onosato up there, and like you said, if Wakataka Kage can return to the form he just used in the previous basho, if Takerfuji comes back swinging like the only sample sizes we have of this man are that he is a dominant force, and he's clearly healthy based on the results he just had in Juryo. Real quick, before we move on to who our ultimate picks are to win this thing, I did want to talk about some of the other guys coming up from Juryo, because with the Takake show, rest in peace, retirement, that opened up another slot. Long story short, there are some weaker contenders here. Like Bushozan, for instance, at M17 has been spared, despite the fact that he went 4-11 from M12, which included him losing his last 10 straight matches. So he's still here. Asakoryu is a guy who I really like, who's come up, the former Ishizaki. I talked to you before. He's a little muscle man like Ishiura. And he's come up. He had a very good basho last in September, but 11-4 from Juryo 8. Under normal circumstances, he wouldn't have come up. So like this is and let's talk about another one. A big story is Shishi, the Ukrainian, right? He is a giant, much more of a lumbering bear type. Think Ichinojo, think Aoyama, think those types of guys. He's actually bigger than like Teru and stuff like that, like in terms of height and weight. But the technique is not there. He's the guy who beat Kinbozan on the last day and stole Kinbozan's spot. And so I think from that match, he deserves to be here. But really, I kind of think Kinbozan has a better chance of competing up here than him. Onokatsu was my big exciting pick from the last basho, and he kind of disappointed. He sort of figured out the division by the second half. But I don't know, man. Toki Hayate, not that impressive of a way up. Chiyoshima, we talked about, he's been injured, and so who knows if he's actually healthy, what kind of version of him is coming here. So, like, a lot of the wind has been taken out of the sails with the promotions here, except for Takerfuji. So I kind of think that's why he's the only logical dark horse pick. Curious if anyone else has another dark horse pick and their justification for it, right? Like, is it something like, do you think Takayasu's healthy and he's going to do it? Do you think Hokuto Fuji is healthy and he's so low he's going to get some wins and stuff like that? But is there anything, I was just trying to blitz through that kind of quickly, but are there any of these promotions or perhaps even the relegations that I didn't talk about that you wanted to touch on, Nick?
No, I don't think so. I think you really covered it. I am waiting. When you mentioned Takayasu, like, oh, is he healthy? I'm like, or is this going to be one where he gets hit and his spine just falls out of his body, just disintegrates?
I know, that's the thing. That's the thing with Takayasu. Like, last basho was huge for me. I love Takayasu. I'll love him until the end. I have a hard time believing there's any scenario where any Rikishi is my favorite Rikishi the way Takayasu has been my favorite Rikishi in his career for just reasons we can get into another time. Just like, but last tournament, it's not done. He got 10 wins. That's awesome. The frustrating part is if Takayasu was 6 years younger, those 10 years would have been 13, and maybe that finally would have been his Yusho,
Yeah, no, I agree. And I will say, like, even injured, the fact that he's still hovering around that, like, 7 to
insane.
9 range consistently. I'm like, that's still impressive.
And racking up double-digit wins. I mean, Tamawashi is the gold standard in many ways, but a primary one being how old he was, 37 when he won that Yusho. So, like, that's a huge thing, too. But double-digit wins is still a big deal. Like, most guys are already sliding down the ladder at this point, and Takayasu, despite the injuries and the pain, keeps coming back and competing. So, that's awesome to see. But, I don't even want to say it. Like, he's not, I don't think so. I don't think he's contending this time. And that's not,
No.
Yeah, maybe another 10. Who do you think is contending? Who is your actual favorite? We've talked about a million names here. Who's your favorite to win this basho then?
I think I am going to go. Oh, man, it's so hard. Because again, the field has changed so much even since the last time he was here. But I'm going to say Takerfuji.
Oh, baby!
I'm going for it.
So he's your dark horse and your pick. Okay. I know we've already talked about it, but like this would be huge if he did this. I can't even get my head around if he did this, but talk me through it. Why are you convinced that he's healthy enough to do it? And why are you convinced that he is still this indomitable threat that the other wrestlers who have gotten better in the meantime as well, Kotozakura, Onosato, why are they not going to defeat him?
Well, one, they don't have the practice against him that they do even with Onosato. That was dominated. Takerfuji once at most, and he did he was a little bit, it was a little bit of muscle, a little bit of technique, so you don't really know what's coming necessarily. Like I said before, he is going to just rip everybody up around him apart, which is going to get him 6-7 wins easy, that the people at the top are not going to have. And truthfully, I think if part of it's just like the excitement of if he can pull that off, and I don't mean this literally, but it's like, do you even talk about Onosato anymore? Or are you just so excited you're like, this guy coming up?
Oh, it's a great point because like Sumo Reddit and the internet English speaking sumo world, like that's what's hilarious is he's the other big story, the big public pick, right? Like they would stop talking about Onosato and they would only talk about Takerfuji, and they wouldn't be completely wrong to do so. I mean, I think it's a little hyperbolic, but like, that would be insane. That would mean that the man has only competed in 4 bashos this year and has won all 4 of them. Again, 2 in Juryo, 2 in Makuuchi, but that would be bananas.
So I think it is 100% my excitement of seeing that. That's probably overriding some of what my brain's telling me to, but my brain can shut up and I'm going with this.
I love this. It's just the pure excitement. And I do think, I mean, you are right. Now they have more tape on him, but they've only fought him once, right? Like it's different to watch someone's matches and to actually get in the ring with them. That's something that like back in the day, people would talk about with young Tyson, right? Mike Tyson, like they'd watch the tape and they'd watch him knock guys out. But then the first time they felt him even like throw a body blow at them, they're like, well, my ribs are broken.
Yeah, video, like you said, video can only carry you so far.
Exactly, yeah. Man, that is so interesting. I disagree, but here's why. Kirishima, I just think he looked really good last basho. And I know this is crazy that neither of us are picking any of these Ozeki when we have such good Ozeki right now. They're all so good. But I still think of the 3 Ozeki and Kirishima, it's hilarious because he needs to reclaim Ozeki first. But like, I don't know. I was with 100% seriousness, like talking about him being the next Yokozuna exactly this time last year when he won the November Basho going 13-2. So that's another thing for me, right? Like, November last year, he did it. At that point, I thought that he was going to be Yokozuna within this year. It didn't happen, the switching of stables, the injuries, but 12-3 last basho. And his losses were all, good losses. Like, he lost to Hoshoryu. That's a 50-50 fight. He's got to be able to turn that around if he wants to get a Yusho. But, like, lost to the eventual champion Onosato. Makes sense. Again, he needs to be able to turn that around if he wants to win this, but I don't think anyone could in all seriousness argue that Kirishima cannot beat Onosato or Hoshoryu. And then Hiradoumi, that's just an interesting one. That just kind of goes to show how good Hiradoumi is. That was just a brutal match. I don't know. It's not a bad loss, is what I'm trying to say. Hiradoumi coming off of a great tournament to lose to him on day 5 was not that shocking, even though that loss is probably what cost him the Yusho. Because imagine he beats Hiradoumi. He and Onosato are 13-2 going into the end because of Avi and go into a playoff. I kind of take Kirishima over Onosato in a playoff when Onosato had beaten Kirishima the previous time. I don't know. That's my pick. What do you think about Kirishima?
I would still love to see it. I think, like you said, I see him getting back to Ozeki. And again, maybe this is just like my excitement for him, or even just this thinking about like, oh, it'd be cool. He loses it, he gets back, and then he's going to fight for Yokozuna. And that's when they just periodically just bring Takerfuji out just to be like, oh, is Onosato ready? Yep. Yes or no. Kirishima, yes or no.
No, I know. It's crazy because, and we haven't talked about it at all, but because it's not a story, Teru's not fighting, and I think we're going to see Teru one more time in his career. And it's definitely going to be in 2025 and it's not going to be in January. That's what I think. Because again, the diabetes is flaring up. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong and they Kakuryu him. Like have him retire without getting to fight that Swan Song Basho. But as of right now, I think he's going to get the Hakuho treatment where he fights one more Basho and hopefully he gets a win. I don't know. We'll see. Well, go on.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think Isagahama's isn't the stable master really close to retirement age?
Oh, yeah. Is he? Yeah. I mean, that definitely, the politics in the backroom stuff is definitely a factor. Yeah.
And I think that would just make sense. Like, depending on if Onosato wins this, I do see Takerfuji coming back in January, just, because he'll be really close to see if he can clinch it. Otherwise, yeah, I'd see him coming back maybe March, maybe do his last one. Again, we keep saying that, but who knows? And then retiring and getting that.
Yeah.
I mean, there'd be no reason they deny it.
Yeah.
And he'd be fantastic to see him take over.
Agreed. Yeah. So we'll see with those guys because, yeah, I don't know. We don't think Teru's going to be here, but I think the division is in insanely good shape. The Sanyaku's in insanely good shape. We love these Ozekis we have here. I do want to hear from people if you could let us know in the comments because, so I picked a Sekiwake, so I'm I guess the boring one. Nick is the truly exciting one with the Takerfuji pick to win it again, but I can't tell Nick he's wrong because it already happened the last time. But what do you all think? And especially vis-a-vis those 3 Ozeki, tell us we're wrong. Clearly I got the Shodai Oho stuff wrong, all that. But really curious to see who your picks would be. Real quick before we get out of here, I did want to say, down in Juryo, if y'all have the ability to watch it, it's really exciting. So Hakuoho, despite a disappointing tournament again, I still don't think that shoulder's healthy. I don't know that he's ever recovered yet. But at 8-7 from J5, he's actually gone all the way up to J2. But that's because of these weird fluctuating restructuring. So Hakuoho is poised to hopefully have a good basho here and come up and add to this insane stable of really young Rikishi, the Onosato Takerfuji Hakuoho. 12 months ago, we would have been telling you this is the truth, this is the future. But then to have Kotozakura and Hoshoryu in there too, and then Kirishima on the outside. So Hakuoho is up there, but Shishi's here, but the more important story is that Aonishiki has finally made it to the Sekitori. He is J11, and I don't know, man. With how things went the last couple bashos, a J11 can actually make it up off of 11 wins. Look at Asakoryu, now it's J, but Aonishiki, I don't know if he's going to win this basho, because it's his first time ever fighting a full slate, a 15-fight slate. But he's so clinical. He's so straightforward. He just hits the fundamentals superbly. I look at the guys around him and I'm like, I don't know, man. You can do 13. You can beat a couple guys who you weren't supposed to beat and lose to a couple guys who you were supposed to lose to. I think he can do it. So very exciting. Nick, you excited for our boy Aonishiki, or are you going to switch trains to the Shishi Mobile?
Oh no, not a chance. Especially, I'm like, oh, who's across him? Chiyomaru. I didn't realize that. Sorry, slightly digressing. I didn't realize Onosho had fallen so far.
Yeah,
but
the injuries.
I think Nishiki can do
Yeah,
it.
Onosho. I know it's tough with Onosho. It's he came back and he got his one win that he needed to make sure he couldn't get demoted. I don't know. I'm with you though. Like Onosho, I think is really good, and I do not want to see. I would like to see this slide stop, but we'll see. Yeah. So Aonishiki, a lot of exciting things in Juryo. Really excited for Makuuchi. November is going to be a great way to cap this year out because I think it's really going to set the tone for next year in this period of flux. Like we have these 4 major young contenders, Takerfuji and the 3 Ozekis. Who's going to do it? Who's going to pick up the mantle? Or are we about to enter another era of dueling Yokozunas like we've had before? Either way, can't wait to see it. Thanks for listening, everybody.